version I wrote, and I have no idea when, but as you can see, it's back in the old typewriter days.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's that magazine on page 15, Insight, did a story on it.
Uh-huh.
And then here's another manuscript here in
Right.
94 or 5, somewhere around there.
Oh, man.
And so...
Well, tell me about, I want to probably tell me a bunch of stuff that's already in here, but tell me a little bit about your own sort of a personal resume. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Philadelphia,
Yeah?
May 11th, 1929.
Uh-huh.
My parents, I was one of 5 children.
Right.
We were a Depression family,
Yeah.
moving from house to house to house to house, changing our name each time so the bill collectors didn't know where the hell we were. Hiding on the floor when somebody knocked at the door and all those kinds of things you did in the 30s.
Sure.
My father was a truck driver. He liked to say he was a delivery engineer. He delivered the Philadelphia Ledger,
Uh-huh.
the Morning Ledger. And he was born in New York in 1889. My mother was born in Philadelphia in 1900.
I see.
Lived in Philadelphia, went to work for the Philadelphia Inquirer at age 15 when I dropped out of school in the 9th grade.
Uh-huh.
I was bored to death with school, and my father said, "You lazy bum, if you're not going to go to school, you're going to go to work."
Right.
So he knew some people at the Philadelphia Inquirer and got me a job as a copy boy at the Philadelphia Inquirer.
At age 15?
15.
When you're in 9th grade? I'll be darned. Okay.
Yeah. And let me digress to an interesting story. When the book 11 Days in Hell, you're familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When that book came out, the Eagles sent a young man over here to interview me, and he sat as you're sitting, and we talked and talked. And I said, and I got a job as a copy boy, and he said, "What's a copy boy?" that story blew me away. I've been telling it ever since.
So that's what email does now.
Yeah, right. You know, if he saw some of that stuff, he might say, "What's a typewriter?"
All right.
But anyhow, went to work for the Philadelphia Inquirer in 1945, January 28th, and stayed there for 14 years with 2 hitches in the military.
Uh-huh.
One, pardon me, I enlisted in 48 in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up in Army Intelligence, the world's greatest oxymoron, and was discharged in 1950 when they were downsizing the military, and I had a 3-year hitch. I got out in 2 years, 1 month, and 11 days.
Right.
And the Korean thing came along the following year, and I got out in 49 and 50. The Korean thing came along, and I was offered the option: re-enlist, or we'll put you in the infantry and draft you.
Mm-hmm.
So I re-enlisted, and found out, as usual, they had lied to me, because with the security clearance I had from my first hitch, they couldn't put me in the infantry where I would face an enemy and be subject to capture or what have you.
Right.
So the buggers lied to me, and it cost me another year in the military. So I served 5 years, 1 month, 11 days in the U.S. military, serving with the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force
I see.
on various TDYs.
Yeah.
The second hitch, 51 to 54, is when I went to Eniwetok for the firing of the world's first
Uh-huh.
thermonuclear device.
There's your second age.
Second hitch.
Yeah.
I hope I said that.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So when you came back in 1950, you came back enlisted in the Army.
When I got out in 1950, March of 1950,
Right.
from my first hitch,
Right.
I went back to the Inquirer
Okay. Right. Right.
and was working there, and the Korean thing started the following year.
Okay. Okay.
Started in June of 50, but the
Uh-huh.
following year they
Right.
told me I got a draft notice or something like that, and so that's where we went.
Okay.
Second hitch, 3 years.
Right.
Enlistment, full enlistment. I did the full enlistment that time.
I see. Okay. Were you ever in Korea? Did you ever?
No,
were
I
you
did
never
not.
sent to Korea?
I served in Germany,
Uh-huh.
I served in the Pacific, and I served in the U.S., all as part of the predecessor to the CIA,
I see.
called the Army Security Agency. Maybe you've heard of it.
Uh-huh.
As a matter of fact, do you get American Heritage magazine?
Yeah, normally people bring them to me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, there's an article in the latest edition about a guy who did during the war some of what we did after the war, as far as the CIA or the ASA is concerned. And if you're interested, I've got that magazine around here somewhere, but I can let you read that if you want. Anyhow, you take it from there. Tell me what you want. Background again. Married in '51 to a girl that I met when we were 13 years old. There's another little story. This girl and I went together for 9 years, and when I told my father we were going to get married, he said, "What the hell's your rush?" That's the way it was in those days. Anyhow, she and I had 6 children. 58 I left the Inquirer for a job with Chilton Company, the publishing company of trade journals in Philadelphia. They had something called Gas Magazine, and among others, they published Iron Age and a lot of the Jewelers, Keystone Circular, and such magazines. 2 other magazines were in the gas business. They were headquartered in Los Angeles, but they had a Philadelphia office for Gas Magazine and Butane Propane News. The editor thereof died suddenly. They needed a replacement in Philadelphia. We had just gone through a newspaper strike in Philadelphia, and I was embittered by the newspaper strike and decided to take my severance pay and go. Got the job with Chilton Company 4 years. 1962, there was an opening in Minnesota for the Midwest Gas Association. Gas Magazine, Gas Association, it fit. I was hired in '63. We moved to Minnesota. Spent the next 29 years in Minnesota, came to Texas in '93, and have been here ever since. Now, what blanks do you need, Phil?
Well, tell me about the first test of the hydrogen bomb, and give me sort of the background on that and how your duty took you there and what your involvement was, or of what you can tell me.
There's not a lot I can tell you about what we did.
Right.
I was in this thing called ASA, Army Security Agency. We did our training in Arlington Hall, Virginia, a place called Arlington Hall in Arlington, Virginia, a former girls' school. We were then sent down to a place called Vint Hill Farms in Warrenton, Virginia, where we did some more stuff. Took basic Army training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and from there was sent to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, to the Signal Corps School at Fort Monmouth. Left Fort Monmouth, went down to Virginia.
Right.
When I went back in the Army in '51, was sent initially to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then back to Virginia. Fort Knox, Kentucky for re-indoctrination or some crap, whatever they call it.
Right.
Somewhere in 1952, I was advised that I would be part of this, and you'll find this in the typewritten notes. I was advised I would be part of this task force that was being sent over to the Pacific, but we can't tell you why or where. And you have a 3-day pass, go home and say goodbye and come back, and that's it. Went home, said goodbye to my wife and my 2-month-old son, my first child, and told my wife, as some of the notes will tell you, that I can't tell you where I'm going, I can't tell you when, but someday around your birthday, which was November 11th, you'll be reading something in the newspapers about where I am and what I'm doing. November 1st, 1952, they fired the shot. And of course, then she had a pretty good idea where I was.
Now you were on board the Estes?
On board the Estes, yes, sir.
Okay.
That was the command ship, the communication ship for the Operation Ivy, Task Force 163.
That's what this was called.
Yeah,
Right.
Operation Ivy.
Mhm.
We went out there, and rumors, as always, are flying all over the place. The rumors were that we were under surveillance by the Russians, that they had submarines in the area and they were spying on us with cameras through their periscopes. There was a Russian plot afoot to kidnap some of the American scientists that were all gathered out there for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest rumor of all, of course, was this could be the end of the world. They'd set off this, if and when they set off this thermonuclear device,
Mm-hmm.
there's a possibility that the entire universe and all the atmosphere surrounding it will erupt in flame and will all be disintegrated.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I learned early on in the military is if you bet against all the rumors you hear, you come out a rich man.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, in this case, the rumors were not true or didn't happen. As you can see, as we sit here.
Yeah. Kind of like when New Year's Day 2000, like
Yeah.
everything was
Yeah.
gonna right.
The
Yeah.
new millennium.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
Well, it was a frightening time because of the possibility.
Right.
This was a possibility that was expressed by scientists. They expressed it at the time of the atomic bomb development.
Right. Right. Sure.
They came to be less concerned after the atomic bomb was fired because the world didn't explode in flame.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that possibility. And we, the unwashed, aboard these ships with all the admirals and the generals, it was a multi-military task force. We were susceptible to these kinds of things, and it was an interesting time because of the fear, and B, the historical aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Once we got out there and we knew what was going on, we didn't know why we were going until we got there.
Right.
And we were on this island, Eniwetok Island was the headquarters island in the chain, the Eniwetok Atoll. And the island was about 600 feet long and 5 miles long and about 600 yards wide and 6 feet above sea level
Right.
at its highest point. We had all our work to do every day, 24 hours a day we were working in our particular jobs. We were up at 5 a.m. on November the 1st for the shot. And it happened at 8 a.m. and it was interesting because the atomic clocks were really clicking exactly down to the second when that thing was fired, triggered.
Right.
One of the interesting parts, most of the big shots had the smoke glasses to watch it.
Yeah.
Those who did not were ordered to turn 180 degrees to the blast and cover your eyes, and so you don't lose your eyeballs or whatever. Most of the people that I was with, the unwashed, as I mentioned, said, "Hell, if the world's going to go up in flames, I don't care what they do. We're going to watch this puppy." And
Did you have any protection on?
No.
Any glasses or?
no, we kind of watched it like this.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We supposed to be looking that way, but there's the bomb over there, and that's the way we look.
How many miles away were you?
I
Do you know, or were you
Well,
told?
I can tell you what I know. At one point, I thought we were 14 miles away. Subsequently, in later readings, I'm told we were 30 miles away. The thing that puzzles me about that is that 30 miles away, you can't see over the horizon
Mm-hmm.
on a ship at sea level.
Right.
So I have a hunch that we were closer than 30 miles. I think the official documents say 30 miles, but I think we were closer than
Mm-hmm.
that. And because we could see the flash, we could see the whole thing, we could see the mushroom cloud, we could see the island of Ugalab, or whatever the name of that little island, another island in the atoll, which is where the tower was, which is where the device was.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that disappear. We saw that island disappear. And as I've said in the writings there, it was like the island of Manhattan suddenly was gone. It didn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was mushrooming up to 120,000 feet in the air, dust and dirt and gas and all the rest of it, and water, of course, from the ocean. And what was that island of Ujalab, or again the name I don't know, but it's in the book.
Right.
That was nothing but a crater, and that's what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone, as much as any piece of land can be gone. The other thing that was particularly harrowing was after the bright light of the explosion, we heard nothing. The sound wave or the shock wave hadn't reached us yet. But I could see coming across the water, the shock wave was coming at us, because the water on that side was dark blue, the water on this side was light blue, and you could see this perimeter coming at us. And I knew enough to know that this was a shock wave, and this was going to hit us, and this was going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I know I screamed at everybody around me to grab and hold on tight to any fixture they could get their hands on. And nonetheless, every one of us was knocked right down to the deck when that shock wave hit us. Nobody was hurt, but everybody that I'm aware of. But everyone lost their balance, lost their footing, lost whatever. They were just driven either back against a bulkhead or down to their knees on the deck. That was a frightening moment, to see that thing coming at us and knowing that there's no escape from this thing. It's going to hit us sometime, and how bad it's going to be, we don't know.
Right. So what happened to you specifically? I mean, you were knocked down?
Oh yeah.
Knocked?
I went to my knees.
Yeah.
I was holding on to the rail with both hands, and
Right.
went to the rail of the Estes, one of the rails of
Right.
the Estes. Wasn't hurt, but the enormity of the force, and with the force came the sound, and the sound was awesome. The noise and the pounding of the shock wave. Was an awesome experience.
I've never been hit by a shock wave. Is it like a strong wind, or is it like a...
It was a force, and I don't mean it was a wind that would whistle by.
More
you.
like a G-force
Type
of thing?
Yeah.
More like a G-force,
Yes.
like you're in a train or an airplane,
Right. And you're
pulling
being
some G's rather than a
shoved
wind
against
type
the
of
back
thing.
of your seat,
okay.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a pretty good description of what
Yeah.
it was like.
Yeah. Did you have any, when you went down and it was hitting, I guess you had no idea how long it was going to last? How long
It
did
was
it last?
over. That was over in an instant.
Yeah.
Because it just kept going by us.
Right.
And over us and over the ship and on out to infinity. I don't know where it went
Yeah.
after it hit us. Out in the Pacific Ocean somewhere.
So after that went by you, you were able to stand up again, and then
Yeah.
what? And the mushroom was still going?
Oh yeah. The mushroom went for hours. And everybody got up and said, what the hell was that? Or words to that effect. Jesus, did you feel that? And all these dumb things that you say at a time like that.
Right. Well, this was 1952, so this was 6 years after, or 7 years after the atomic bomb. So people knew what a mushroom cloud looked like. They knew sort of what to expect from that, but certainly not the being there. Not the being exposed to it.
A-bombs by that time were old hat.
Yeah.
There have been so many of these experiments. The Bikini thing with the woman's head that we've seen so many pictures of.
Right.
They were popping those things off, as I think I said
Yeah.
somewhere, like champagne corks
Right.
on New Year's Eve.
Right.
But this thing was the first time of anything of this magnitude. And I don't have the number in my head how many more times how much more explosive this was than Nagasaki or Hiroshima, but it was a magnitude of many counts.
Right.
The kill pattern for a hydrogen bomb, or the not the kill pattern, but the effect pattern for a hydrogen bomb of that time was something like 800 miles. For, at least that's what I read.
Yeah.
That could leave you scarred, or we were outside the diameter of any burn, but depending on what's inside the bomb, and I don't know the technicalities of all this, but I have read that there's an effect, whether it blows over a piece of paper at 799 miles or not, but I think I've read 800 miles. There's an effect of that shock wave going out from that bomb, of that magnitude at that time.
That's right. So the effect that it hit you at anywhere between 14 and 30 miles.
Yeah, and it was pretty powerful, as I said.
Yeah.
I know of no one that was injured. You know, even being slammed up against a bulkhead could cause some injury, but I never heard of anyone that was physically injured. I could also say that 10 days later they popped off another atomic bomb test in the same location. For what reason, I have no idea, but that wasn't anything like what we saw on the 1st of November.
Now, as far as what you can tell me about why you particularly were there, I noticed, I read somewhere in there that your duty station was the radio room.
The Estes is a communication ship.
Right.
The Army Security Agency at that time was part of the Signal Corps. And it evolved into, well, you know, OSS started that kind of work in World War II. And it became, OSS became CIA.
Yeah.
And ASA was a part of CIA.
Right.
Okay. And our work was in communications, and that's what I can tell you. And the other thing is, as a matter of fact, oddly enough, this article in American Heritage that I just mentioned, I copied it off the internet and sent it to all my kids, because this is as much as they've ever known about anything that I ever did in the military. 5 years, 1 month and 11 days. The only visible gain is the ability to touch type.
Right.
So I've never told anybody about what I did, and as I told my kids in that article heading, I said I thought this was an article of interest.
Right.
And that's all I've told them. Now they know I was in Eniwetok, they know I was in Germany, they know I was doing secret work, but I've never told them, and I still feel this is ridiculous, I know, but after 59 years or something, I feel like I took that oath of secrecy or
right.
top secret clearance that we had, and I've never violated it.
Right.
As ridiculous as it sounds after all these years. Because what we were doing then was probably so passé now.
Yeah. So what did you do? So that was done. How far into your 5 years was this?
This is 52. I got
52,
out in
so
54.
Right, okay. So what did you do
We
after
came
that?
back to Ben Hill Farms, Virginia, and did what we were doing in Virginia for the rest of my career, or my tour. And in March of 54, I was discharged, went back to the newspaper,
Yeah.
stayed there till 58, 59.
Right.
Then I left and came to Minnesota. Or I'm sorry, I left and went to Chilton Company.
Right. And then came here
I came to
in
Texas
93.
in 93.
In 93. Because you were at Chilton
For 4 years, and then 29 years or 27 years with the Midwest Gas Association.
Right. Right.
There's a gap in the story here because in '93 I ran away from home in Minnesota and got on my sailboat and came to Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and subsequently was divorced and then remarried here.
I see.
And my wife Joyce teaches at A&M. She teaches the teachers going into gifted and talented
I see.
teaching students.
I see.
She teaches graduate students and undergraduate students.
I see. That's what she's doing now?
That's why she isn't here to say hello.
I see. I see. Are you in contact with your kids?
Oh yeah.
Where are they?
Well, I have two of them now here in Texas.
Okay.
One's in Belleville,
Uh-huh.
and the other one is in right outside of Houston on Highway 290. Yeah, she's working for the gas company in Houston.
I see.
She's a district manager for with something like 1 million customers under her charge.
How many grandkids you got?
I have 9, 10, 11. I have 9 of my own grandchildren, and then one of my daughters has adopted a couple of kids. So
Oh, I
have
see.
11 grandchildren, and I'm about to be a great-grandfather in January.
Oh, well.
By one of the adopted children.
Yeah.
That brochure that's in there on Operation Ivy and a copy of the story has been scanned into Ann Boykin's Project Hold.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the earliest pieces that she did. I'm pretty sure that Sharon has done an interview with me over there for one of her broadcasts.
Right. Now there's a good picture of the Estes. Is that picture?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
there
the same
it came
one,
from
yeah.
right there. Yeah. Do you have any pictures of you, like official military photograph or young pictures or anything like that?
Well, there's that one up there.
Uh-huh.
That was in Germany in 49 or 50.
Yeah.
And I have a picture in my file here, if you want me to pull it up, of me with my silly army hat on.
Yeah, let me see that.
Yeah.
I might get you to email it to me.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, that's good. Can you email that to me?
Yeah. Do I have your email address?
I don't know. I'll give it to you if you want to.
I must have your email address because you emailed me this morning,
That's right.
so I can send it to you.
I did because I emailed you. Yeah, just email it right back to me. That would be good. That would be good.
Other than that, I don't have much in the way of military. My military career was not one that I was very much enamored with.
So what'd you do when you got here in '93? Besides
I was
get married.
I retired early
Mm-hmm.
from the Midwest Gas Association in '90
Right.
and hung around in misery for 3 years in Minnesota
Uh-huh.
and got on my sailboat and came down the inland waterways on the sailboat
Mm.
to Freeport.
Yeah.
And in Freeport, there's a lot of folks from this area.
You really sailed down here on your sailboat? Down the Mississippi or what?
Mississippi.
You did?
The Illinois River, the Chicago River.
That was your mode of transportation to
Yeah.
get to Texas. That's a story all in itself right there.
It is. It's called We Three, Fred, the Ferry Boat, and Me. It's another book that I've written that hasn't been published yet. Oh, I'm sorry, it is. It's available on Amazon, what do they call it? Kindle.
Uh-huh.
You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's a great story.
So how many books have you written?
I've written 5. Only 11 Days in Hell has been published.
Uh-huh.
We Three is available on Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've sold 3 copies of it on Kindle. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. I wrote a book called, well, I have one that I'm working on right now. That's, as a matter of fact, I have a meeting with a lawyer on Wednesday on a book called Second Thoughts. Questionable Supreme Court nominations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a look back on presidents that have nominated people and regrettable Supreme Court nominations.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Harry Truman called Tom Clark of Texas a dumb son of a bitch after he had nominated him. You probably know the Eisenhower story on Supreme Court Chief Justice from California. Warren.
Yeah.
The dumbest thing I ever did in my life. And, so there's a whole bunch of incidents such as that book covers. I wrote another book called An Eye for an Eye in Defense of the Death Penalty.
Uh-huh.
I wrote another book called Rivers of Life and Death,
Mm-hmm.
about accidents such as the one down in South Padre Island where they knocked the bridge out and all the cars went off the bridge and
Mhm.
the water back in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I've written about 5 books,
Yeah.
but I haven't been fortunate enough to find publishers for except 2 of them.
Right.
And one on the Supreme Court, I have a meeting with a lawyer on Wednesday that hopefully is going to move this along. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That one is it just blows my mind away because that book was finished in January and we knew all this Supreme Court stuff was coming down the road. And I have written to more than 150 literary agents or agencies, and not one of them said, boy, this is hot. This is a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what you know about the publishing world today, but if you're not a celebrity, that's where all the money is. That's where all the money's going.
Right.
So anyhow,
Right.
I've had my frustrations,
Yeah.
but I haven't given up.
I know there's, have you tried any of these, what's the name of it? Author House? Do you know what that is?
That's a self-publishing.
Yeah.
And
I don't know that you make any money. You probably pay more than you make, but
you do,
yeah.
or at least,
It just depends on what, yeah.
11 Days in Hell
Mhm.
has gone through 3 printings at the University of North Texas Press.
Uh-huh.
It's out now in paperback.
Uh-huh.
So for a university press, it's been rather successful. It has cost me far more money than I've ever received in royalties. Far, far, far more money.
Yeah.
When you have to travel 600 miles to go interview somebody, why, it takes a hell of a lot of books at something like $3 a royalty.
Right.
So it's not a profitable world.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess it's the vanity, or you've got something to say, so you go ahead and say it. Now that I've said it, I don't have to say any more about the death penalty. I've said everything I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
To self-publish, as I'm incoming president again of the Brazos Writers.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Troy is the immediate past president. Do you know Mark?
No, I mean,
You know. Mark has said to me, and I certainly agree with him, what bestseller ever came out of a self-published house?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll search long and hard to find one.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm just tired of beating my head against the wall
Yeah.
with people that don't have any interest or something.
Yeah.
The hope that I have with the only reason I got on the Supreme Court book was that I don't have the platform
Mm-hmm.
to talk about the legal world.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So
Go ahead.
well, if I had an LLB D behind my name or something like that had probably been snapped up a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And that's frustrating to me that they make judgments before they nobody's read that manuscript.
Right.
And that's what bothers me. If 50 people had read it and said this isn't worth publishing, okay. But I sent it out to 150 literary agencies, and no one has ever read the manuscript, and yet all of them made what they come back and said, this is not for us, this is not for us, we can't represent you on this. And the only reason that I've gotten it is what I just told you, is I don't have the platform. I'm not a lawyer. How can I write about the Supreme Court if I'm not a lawyer? Well, how can I write about the Revolutionary War if I wasn't there to fight in it? You know, it's the same logic to me.
Right.
Anyhow, it's aggravating and frustrating, but other than that, we go on.
This, are you still selling this book? I mean, is
Yeah.
it on, like, is Amazon still?
No, it's still carried
Yeah,
at full
still.
list price. Well, I don't know about Amazon because they have Kindle. No, I'm sorry, that wouldn't be any bearing.
Yeah.
But if you pull that up, 11 Days in Hell on Barnes and Noble or Amazon, you'll find it still it's selling at list price. And I don't know if they're listing the hard copy or the hardback or the soft cover, what do you call it? Pocketbook. No, it's not pocketbook. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
there's a lot of references to Bob Wyatt in here.
Oh, Bob Wyatt is a big part of that story. Bob Wyatt was my first interview
Really?
to get that story.
I heard the other day that Bob is he's really not doing well at all.
He's not.
I heard he's 120 pounds.
That's right. He used to be the poster boy for the FBI, Mr.
Sure.
Physical Fitness.
Oh yeah. No, when I worked most of my time working at A&M, he was
He
of course the top cop there
Yeah.
and all that. He's a hell of a guy.
He's a
But-
magnificent guy,
Yes.
and he and I have driven back and forth to Huntsville a couple of times. It's 50 miles from here to Huntsville, 50 miles back.
Yeah.
50 miles down, I get 50 stories out of Bob Wyatt. 50 miles back, I get 50 more stories out of Bob Wyatt. I want desperately to write his biography. He won't let anybody write his biography.
Why is that, I wonder?
Well,
Because
he
has such,
says he doesn't want to go through the physical effort to dredge out the files.
Right.
Give me the damn files, Bob, I'll go through them. He says, and I have a hunch that he doesn't want to recall some of these things. You know, one of his stories is some guy was sitting in a bathtub in a hotel room with a gun in his mouth, threatening suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason or another, Bob Wyatt got dragged into this thing, and Bob said, let me go up and talk to the guy. Bob's an expert on negotiation, and there are techniques for negotiating, and they thought maybe Bob could help.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob walks into the bathroom, the guy's sitting there with a gun in the mouth, and Bob Wyatt says, hello, I'm Bob Wyatt from the FBI. Bang, the guy pulls his trigger. So everybody thanked Bob for saving us all this trouble. Now we can just clean up the bathroom and go on our merry way. The Sugarland Express.
Right.
That's Bob Wyatt.
That's Bob Wyatt, yeah. I know.
You remember hearing about, you're not old enough to remember the Truman assassination attempt when he was living in the Blair House.
Yeah, where the misfired guns.
Yeah, and
right.
the Puerto Rican nationalists.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Bob Wyatt is part of that story.
Uh-huh. No, I did not know that he was part of that story.
I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
He's got so many, 50
Yeah.
stories down, 50 stories
See,
down.
I didn't know that he was part of the Truman thing. Have you got a scanner?
Yeah. What do you want scanned?
The cover of this. Unless you have it somewhere.
I don't. I'll get you. This is my scanner. My wife's scanner is better.
Well, I've got a scanner too. I don't know. Do you have another copy of this I can borrow and get back to you on Thursday?
Let me give you this.
Oh yeah,
copy.
okay, yeah, there you go. Because let me give this one back to you on Thursday, and I'll scan this myself. You know a fellow named, by chance, you know a fellow named Carl Davidson from Huntsville? Used to be the mayor.
No.
He worked for the prison during this,
So many people.
and he was the guy that did most of the videography. He was the guy with the camera rolling. Because he was sort
when
of
they
the
were coming out.
I think that was his job. He was sort of the, I don't know, the PR guy or publicist or the public information guy for the prison at the time. And yeah, he tells the stories. He was a guy with cameras rolling.
Unfortunately, those films are not very good.
Yeah.
It was too dark.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what he said.
And the contrast between the dark night and then the bright lights, it just washed everything out I've seen the films that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Over at the Department of Public Safety in Austin.
Right.
And I couldn't use anything, and I was told in advance that you're not going to get anything out of this. And it's unfortunate. And I wish I could have had more out of it.
Yeah. Well, this is an incredible story, and Thursday I look forward to telling it on KAMU. What we do is, you know where KAMU is? It's where Sharon does, same room where Sharon does her thing over there.
I have a radio program on KAMU every Thursday, so
that means you know where it is, don't you?
Penny and I are good friends.
Good. 2:30 on Thursday.
You want me there at 2:30?
Be there about 2:15.
Okay.
We'll get one. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just a 30-minute thing. We're just sitting there at a table and we'll just talk. I'll lead the conversation and you talk. And you've given me so much good information. And if you'll email me that.
Yeah.
And I guess the things in here, since they were used in Insight, they're okay to use, right?
Oh yeah. There's no problem with using any of that.
Right.
I think there's a letter in there from the government in that brochure saying that this information is no longer restricted, as it says on the cover of that.
Right. Right. Right.
What's that say? What is that?
The Joint Task Force Observers Pamphlet will be downgraded upon official public release of the Atomic Energy Commission or the Department of declassification of copies and extracts of the affected document may be accomplished by canceling the classification marks and attaching effective insert date of this document is regarded unclassified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. That's one thing they'd be concerned about. All right.
Will you have all that back when you're finished with it?
I will. I will have it to you on Thursday. I will bring it.